Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? So in today's session, it's going to be important for tomorrow's project because we're going to explain many of the CSS properties that we're going to use it in the project tomorrow. So at any point of time, if you don't understand anything, please make sure that you stop me, tell me to repeat it again, because it's very, very important class. So you can understand the project that we're going to do it tomorrow together. Okay. Any questions about yesterday class? Anything that you tried at home and you're having like errors or anything wasn't clear?
It was clear for me. Good evening, Mr. Alfred.
Hey, how you doing, Neda? Is that how you pronounce your name correctly? Neda?
Nereus.
Nereus. Okay. How you doing today, Nereus? It's too hot here in the East Coast. I don't know. You're in Virginia, right?
No, I'm in Cameroon.
Okay, in Cameroon. How is the weather today?
No, the weather is very, very chilled.
Oh, lucky you. Here it's extremely hot in the East Coast. Okay. All right. So as I said, today it's important class because yesterday we only covered the color and the background color. There's not too much properties. We need more to build more. That's the reason we're going to have the class today. We're going to explore different concepts of CSS and how the box model, for example, it's very important to understand the box model. So let me start by sharing my screen. And let me create a folder for today's class. And I'm just want to go over something before we start a class because it's going to be very, very helpful tomorrow. Just want to make sure that you guys fully understand it. I'm going to call it CSS. Open it with Visual Studio Code. So you always open folders with VS Code, not files. Okay, now I'm in the folder, CSS folder, and I can create a new file. You can call it any name, index. That's a popular name to multiple of HTML files, .html. Create a boilerplate by putting an exclamation mark, press Enter or Tab. And let's add an H1 here. Hello, world. Okay. My page, very, very simple HTML document. Just have the basic structure and H1 element inside the body. Save it and open it with the live server. And by the way, I recommend to use Chrome. It's one of the best browser, or Firefox. Internet Explorer is not the best out there. Anyway, you have your page here. The first thing I want to go over with you and make sure that you fully understand it. Each browser gives you some tools to help you as a developer, to help you to debug the code, to see some properties of the code, and it will help you in your development. To access these tools, you can right-click and you press Inspect. That will open the developer tool. In the beginning, it looked like it's too much, but you're going to get familiar with it. I'll go over it very quickly with you. This is the developer tool here. And as you can see, you have multiple tabs. For the most, we're going to use the elements, okay, in this course. Now, here, it gives you the tree, your code. This is what is the page is. When I hover over the HTML here, it will highlight the HTML. If I hover over the head, this is my title, and this is my H1, hello world, right? Okay, you see when I hover over it here, you see all these colors around it. You can see what is the styling, the current styling of my page down here. So I can't believe I can push this up. Yep. So you see here, you find user agent style sheet. The user agent refer to the default CSS of the browser. That's why giving the color black. That's why putting some spacing around the H1 here. This is the default behavior of the browser. So I want you to understand that. And if I put any CSS here, I should see it down here. You can access the computed value. So the computed value, it will tell you that the height is 79 pixels. The width, this is the width of the whole thing. So it gives you some information about the page that you're developing, and it's very, very helpful in debugging, okay? And also when we cover the box model, I will go over what is this box that you see down there. For example, if I put a paragraph here, this is my paragraph. Okay, let me save it. And let's see how it looks like. Here's the paragraph. Now you will notice that the tree of the HTML different. Your body now have the paragraph, and when you put your mouse on the paragraph, you will see it highlighted in the page. Perfect. Now, if I go to compute it, and I click in the display, English. This is the default behavior of the browser. Let me change now some of the CSS of this paragraph. Okay. By the way, this is off the side talk. Does anybody know what is the default size of paragraph by any chance? The default of the browser, this size. You notice that this size is smaller than a heading. As a side note, the size of the text in the default text in any browser is 16 pixels. So you want to know that, because later when we explain the CSS font size today, you'll be able to change the font size. You want to know what is the default one. So it's 16 pixel given by the browser. Okay. Any questions? Again, to open this, very simple, right click, inspect, and don't go to any other tool. This one here is what we need. And you have down there the styles. If I try to change the style here, let me do here using a style tag. And I'm going to select the paragraph. So the first part is the selector. And you open the curly brackets. And let's do color red. And now if I go, I will see the color red, right? And now if I selected the paragraph here, you see it will give me all the CSS that affecting this element. So you have to select it here to see the CSS. You'll see that this paragraph colored red, and I can toggle that. You see, I can cancel my styling, and it will tell you where's this styling coming from. This styling, because it's I put it in the same index.html as a style tag, it will tell you it's coming from the index.html, and it will tell you the line it's coming from, line number 8. So that's very helpful in the debugging. So later, when you, for example, you give some styles to an element and it's not working, you want to go to the developer tools to see what's going on and what goes wrong in that case. And you will see me doing that a lot tomorrow in the project. Try to inspect the elements. If now I selected the H1, I will get all the properties that's affecting the H1. Selecting the paragraph, I get all the CSS properties that affecting the paragraph. The properties that down here, these are the default CSS properties that the browser give it to any paragraph. And if you select compute it as I show you, and if you select you see here that the browser usually using 16 pixel as default, including the margin and the margin start, but the default size of any paragraph is 16 pixel. And you will see that your color now is taking effect here. Okay. Any question about the developer tool? How you can access it, how you can target any element. Okay. And of course, you can click here in these 3 dots. And if you want to put it in the bottom of the screen, you can select this. And if you want to put it on the other side, and if you want to take it off the web page, you can click this, and you will have it as a second page. All right, that's enough talk about the developer tool. We're going to use it a lot. Now, I want to show you something else before we move with the styles. Let's say you're developing a product. Okay, let's say a product like an e-commerce web page, and you have each product H3, like the name of the product. Okay, like let's say TV, and you have a paragraph. This paragraph will say the price, $445. And also, let's put the brand. Another paragraph explaining the brand or model. Let's put brand, I don't know, TV models. Samsung. Okay. Now I have one product here. I want to create multiple products. Simple. I can copy this product and go down here, and of course I can right-click and format my document, and it's formatted. Now let's add here, change the second product, like let's say radio, and it costing $50.99, and the brand is LG. And finally, I have what? Keyboard. And the price for the keyboard is $20.99. And the brand, let's say Dell. Okay, now I have 3 products. Each product, what does each product consist of? A title and 2 paragraphs, right? How can I tell the browser that a title and 2 paragraphs is actually one product? So technically, when you're writing HTML, we're communicating with the browser, right? So how can I separate or tell the browser that all this element are grouped together to be a product, and this 3 are grouped together to be a second product, and this 3 are grouped together to be a third product?
I think we can use a div.
Exactly. So there is a tag, HTML tag for that to group elements together. It's a generic tag, so it have no meaning for the browser. It have no representation to the browser, and the browser will not gonna view anything special. It's called div, where you can group multiple elements inside it, and div short for division. I want to create a division of my page, and it's generic. It's meaningless. Okay, it just can be used to group multiple elements together. So I can put here div and wrap all my elements and put the closing tag for the div here. So now this div, one div is mean one product. And now div, and of course the closing have to be here. So this is the opening tag, this is the closing tag, and you stuff inside the div as many as you want elements to group them together, to make a group of elements, to make a division of elements. Okay. So now I have a total of 3 divs. How is that helpful? Well, now you group them together. You can target a div with a styling to style it differently. So for example, here in I can use the style and select the div. So each product, so when I put div here, I mean each product. I will style each product of the 3, and now the browser understand that each product is inside a div. And I can make the background color, let's say, gray. If you take a look at it, if you open it, I think it's running. You see now, each div or each product in that case, since I group it with a div, I can style all of them one time by defining this div here. So again, you use the div element, it generic, have no meaning. It just, you tell the browser that I want to group multiple elements inside this division, inside this div element. Okay. Any question? Okay. This is the short introduction. I want to go over the div element and the developer tools, because they're going to be very, very helpful for tomorrow's project. But now let's continue with the class, and I'm going to minimize that, close that, and start with the slides and see what we're gonna have in our agenda today. So that's the code. So you can go to join pd.com, put the code in to have access to the slides. Okay, let's start. And of course, yesterday we went over the introduction to CSS. We covered a little bit of the history of the CSS and what is CSS and why we need it to sell our web pages and why we use it. And we go over the syntax. Syntax is very important to actually make the CSS property take in effect in your page. If you're not put it in the correct syntax, it's not going to change the style of your page. Okay, we went over that. And today we're gonna be covering CSS selectors, how you can select elements in your page. And also we're going to go over CSS comments, how you can create comments, and the box model. Creating comments is important. The box model is very, very important to understand it. Also, how you can select elements in your page is very important because you want to style specific items in your page and you want to target them directly to select that specific item. So let's talk about CSS selectors. CSS selectors are used to select HTML elements. So you want to select HTML elements. For example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. If I try now to select the paragraph and make the color red, do you think the first one will be red or all of them will be red?
All of them?
All of them, that's correct. But here comes the question. What if I want just the first one to be red? Or what if I want the last one to be red? Or probably I want the prices to be in a different color than the brand. How can I do that? By just typing the element here, you're not going to be able to do that. You need some other selectors. You want to be creative about the selectors. Okay, so that's the dilemma here. I want to target a specific element, like, for example, the price paragraphs, not the brands, just the prices here. With my current selector that I'm using, I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay, I just want to show you why we need different selectors in CSS. Okay, for example, I want this div, which is this product, to be colored in purple, indicating that this is a new product, right? Now, at this current styling, I'm selecting all the divs, not this one particularly, okay? So we will go over the slides and see what is the solution for this problem. So by now, you can put the element. In this example, we have a paragraph. To select this paragraph or any other paragraphs in my page, all I need to do is just refer to the element name, in that case, P, which is short for paragraph, and add the styling here, which is color red, and it will turn this one to red. But using this kind of styling, an element selector use element name to select HTML element. This is called element selector. So I'm selecting by an element, okay, using the element name. That's probably what you want to do in your page, but there's going to be case scenarios that you want to target a specific element, not all the paragraph, a specific paragraphs, okay? So element selector is not going to be helpful to you at this point. So what other selectors I have? So this is the first type of selectors, which is the element selector. We have something called the ID selector. ID is an attribute, so it's an extra information you add to the element in the opening tag. The ID selector uses ID attribute to select the element in HTML file. Okay, the ID of an element must be unique inside the page. A hashtag character is used to select an element with that specific ID. Okay, what is that supposed to mean? You have this example, I have this paragraph, and probably have other 10 paragraphs. But I want to target this paragraph, specifically only this one. So you can add an attribute, you're going to give it a specific ID. Whatever this ID is, just a text, you can call it whatever you want. I can call the value of the ID welcome ID1, you can put a number, you can put any value here. But because this is the value, how are you going to select this element? So you pick this value, whatever you want. And now with this value in my CSS, I put it. But since you use as an ID here, you add a hashtag here. This hash. This hash means I'm selecting the element who has this ID. Okay, so hash means the element who has the text1 ID. You probably have other 10 paragraphs, but the only paragraph that have this ID will be colored red. Okay, let's try that one. Let's try this trick. Now, I want to use, just gonna remove that. Let's say this div. I want to give it an ID because ID, you can give it to any element in your page. And I want to make this whole product, the background, let's say purple, to indicate that this is a new product. So I will give it a specific ID, and I can call it anything. Let's say new product, something like that. Okay. So now, since I have an ID for only this div, even though I have 3 different products, I can target this specific div in my document using its ID, which is new product. But you have to put the hash here. This hash tag indicating to the CSS that you're looking for an element that have an ID of new product. And I can change the background color to purple. And let's take a look at it. Let me run it. There's the live server. Here we go. So that this only div, this is the only div that will be background color as purple. The other 2 will not going to be affected. Why? Because this is the only div that have ID. And in that case, I'm selecting only element with that specific ID. Okay. Let me ask you that question. If I add another ID here with the same value, is that going to make the background purple?
Yes.
It will, but it's not a good practice. ID, you're only targeting once in your page. If you want to, in that case, you have only one new product or unique product. You can call it unique product. You're only using that ID once in your page. That's the best practice. If I want to give this another ID, I can rename it anything else. That should be fine, like favorite product. That's fine. But you can't repeat the same name. It's not a good practice because if you want to repeat the same name, we have a different selector for that, but you don't use the ID. So keep in mind, whenever you use an ID attribute, make sure its value is unique and you never use it in your page before. Okay. But just to show you that, yeah, the browser don't care, it will render it. If I put ID here, both of them will be purple. But it's not good. ID was identified, this tag, as unique identifier. See, if I hover over it, define a unique identifier. In that case, new product is not unique anymore. I give it to multiple elements, right? Okay.
Okay, so that means IDs basically they should be used once.
The value of it. You can add as many IDs as long as the value will change.
Oh,
I can,
okay.
so I can use an ID here, call it 1. I can add an ID here, call it 2. I can, or let's say price, brand, whatever like this. That's fine. As long as the value is different, not a big deal.
Okay.
Okay. You can definitely you can use it as many as you want, but their values should be different. Okay.
All right, got that.
So you can select an element with an ID using this hashtag. What if I want to be more specific? Because again, I'm probably gonna say I want the paragraph that have the ID new product. So I put paragraph that have the ID new product. Do I have a paragraph here that have an ID new product? What do you think? Is any of these paragraphs have an ID of new product?
No, I don't think there's no paragraph there with
No, the ID I gave it to the div element,
it was
right?
new. Yeah.
So if I try to save this, this is wrong because now the browser looking for a paragraph that have the ID new product, and you don't have any of these paragraphs having the ID new product. I have a div. So you can be more specific and adding the element before the ID. So I can put div here. Both will be doing the same job. But in that case, you're more specific targeting which element exactly. So in that case, you're targeting a div that has an ID new product.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Anything is not clear? It's fine. We can give another different example. So now, if I save that, this is the only div that have this ID, and I should see the background is different. Okay, so this is the ID. And this is the comment, by the way, in CSS. If you're not sure, you just here, you press Control//, and it consists of /* and then you can put your comment, and then you put the asterisk and then //. So I can add any comment here. So I can describe ID selector. I'm gonna put a comment here saying element selector. And I'm just gonna comment this, copy it, comment for you as a reference, but so you know that you can also use the ID right away, or you add the element in front of it. Okay. So you have an ID selector and you have an element selector. What other selectors we have? So any question about the ID before we move to the next one? Okay. So that next one is the class selector. And here's the thing. I have these products, right? Now I want to change all the prices to be color, let's say blue or green. Now I want 1, 2, 3 different paragraphs. So it's a group of paragraphs here. I want to change them to color green. If I use the p tag, that's not going to do the job because it will change the brands as well. If I try to give the ID here for every single paragraph, so if I can do it like this way, ID product 1, and then I have to give multiple or product or price 1. Like, let's make it simple, price 1. And now I have to give a different ID to this guy and give a different ID to this guy. And put 3. It have to be unique IDs, right? And now it's going to be a lot of work because you have to target every specific ID and make sure that the color is green. That's a lot of work, right? But CSS have a solution for you, that a class is a category, like you mark this as a category, and you can share it with other elements. So I can, instead of using ID, since I'm going to use, I want to put this price as a class or as a category of CSS. So I can use, instead of ID, class. And in that case, it's okay to repeat the class with the same name. So I can put it product price. So now this paragraph belongs to the same category of this paragraph, or the same class of this paragraph, and I can paste it here. So classes, you can have multiple elements with the same class, but for IDs, you can't have the same multiple elements with the same ID. Okay, so now these three prices are sharing the same class. In that case, I can target classes. The class, which is in that case called product price. So for the ID, we use the hashtag. For the class, you use the period or dot. That will tell the CSS that you're looking for a class. Its name is product price. And now I'm going to select all the elements that belong to that class to have the color green. And now if I take a look at it, you will see now that all the prices are in green color. And that's much easier. And instead of giving each of them a different ID, and I have to keep writing ID1, ID2, and ID3 and keep repeating myself, right? So now all you need to do, just add classes, and now all these three paragraphs belong to the same class, and now boom, you can target the same class one time from the CSS. Also, you can be more specific and say that I want the paragraph, it have to be paragraph, because I can give this h3 class product price. But in that case, this CSS selector, it will only make the text green for the paragraphs, not including the h3. Okay, see? Even though I give this h3 the same class, it's belong to the same class, but I selected specifically the paragraphs that will have the class product price. If I remove the P here, that it don't have to be a paragraph, I save that. You will notice now that the H3 here also green, because now I'm looking for any element that have this class, not specifically a paragraphs. Does that make sense? Now I'm telling the browser, any element, I don't care if it's paragraph, H3, list item, doesn't matter what is the element. As long as it belongs to this class, make it green. However, you can be more specific by adding also the element here. So in that case scenario, I'm saying I want only paragraphs that belong to that class to have the color of green. Okay. Just gonna put it like this. Comment this one. So now, when you refer to a class name in CSS, it's using the period or the dot, okay? Then the class name. So in this example, we have a class for this paragraph and this class called error. So that means if I have an H1 here and give it class error, okay? Do you think the H1 will be colored red as well? Yes or no? Since it's having the same class. What do you think?
I think it will be red also.
Yes, because now I'm looking only for the class name, right? I wasn't specific which element that I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
But if I put P here, it will only target the paragraphs, not the headings. All right. So that's the main selectors. Of course, there is more advanced selectors, but these are the main 3 selectors. Let me show you something else. Let me. Oh, go ahead, Julie. Go ahead.
Can you please explain dot and p dot difference?
Sure. Okay. Let me create a new file for that specific example, and CSS selectors, just to not JS. It's becoming a habit because I'm creating a lot of JavaScript files. Just HS. Close this one. Hate when I do that. Cancel. Here we go. Okay, create a quick boilerplate. Sometimes take time. See, because now the Visual Studio Code is running some stuff behind the scene. That's why it's acting slow. Now, I have a paragraph. Okay. First paragraph. I have an H1. Hello, world. Let's say I have an H2. Sub heading text. All right, I have 3 different elements. And now I'm going to style here using style tag. It's easier instead of creating external files. So if we're trying stuff here in the same file, it's much easier. And now I want to target a class that called, let's say, error. I'm going to use the same thing. And any error in my page should have the color red. Now I'm going to start adding elements to my class. So this paragraph, I'm going to make it class error. This H1, going to give it a class of error. And H2, I'm going to give it a class of error. So all of them, they belong to my class, right? So when I load my page, do you think that all of them will be colored red? What do you think? Because any class that have the error should be red, right? And you're absolutely correct. All of them. And I need to actually close this and open it with the live server. There we go. So you were absolutely correct. But what if I want to target the only paragraph? Only paragraphs with the class errors. I don't care about H1. I don't care about H2. I don't want to affect them, even though they belong to the same class. But I want to target the paragraph that have the class error. All you need to do is be more specific here. Describe that you want to target the element that called P, any P element that have the class error. So even in plain English, you're describing to CSS, I am looking for paragraphs that have a class called error. And even if you see when I hover over it, it will tell you exactly what the search, it will search for what. The CSS will search for a paragraph with a class error. This is not paragraph. It's not going to be red. This is not paragraph. It's going to be H2. This is H2. So what do you think when I load my page? Is it going to be the only paragraph red or all of them red?
Only one.
Okay, so, and that's the difference. See, now the paragraph. Now the question to you, what if I want to make only the H1 red? What do I need to change here? Not the paragraph, the H1.
H dot error.
H1 dot error. Now I'm targeting heading level 1 that have the class error, right? Is that clear now? What is the difference is?
Thank you. I got it. Thank you.
If you don't care, you want all the elements that belong to the class, then that's it. You only, I'm looking for any element. See, if when you hover over it, it's not going to be, it's just going to tell you element. So all the elements that have this class. But if you be more specific, like a paragraph, and you hover over it, it tells you that it will be looking for paragraphs that having the class error. Okay. Any other questions, guys? That was a good question, Julie. As I said, it's very good that you ask questions, clear stuff up before we actually go and explore different properties. Any questions? Okay, there is one more selector which is actually, it's not a selector. It's a selector. It's a wildcard. You can use wildcards. Wildcard, which is the asterisk, and it's called the universal selector. Universal because it's going to select all the elements in your page, the HTML, the body, the H1, the paragraph, every single element in your page. It will select all of them. Okay. And now you can add some styles to all the elements one time. So in that case, in this example, I have an HTML, the body, the H1, the paragraph, body, HTML. I'm using the universal selector, which is the asterisk, and I make the color blue. So it will add the property color blue to all these elements, including the HTML1, body, H1, paragraph. All of them, they will have color blue. Even if I'm going to add UL, also it will be blue because I'm selecting all the elements that is in my page. Okay. So let me try it here. Color blue. Okay. And let's go back here. And now let's inspect the page. That's when inspect comments in handy. I like to put on the side here. And here's my head. Let's select the head. See, I'm selecting now the head. You will see that the head have the property color blue. Where is this coming from? It's coming from the CSS Selector.html. Let's select the title. Also, the title have this property, share this property. Okay. And the body, this H1 here, have the color blue. H2 have the color blue. This paragraph have color blue. So all of them, they receive these CSS properties. Okay. Including the HTML here. When you click the HTML, you're selecting all the elements in your page. Any question about the universal selector? It's very straightforward. Select everything. Okay. CSS comments. Usually when you add comments, even if you don't know, Visual Studio will give you help. You just press Control//. It will give you the correct syntax, even if you forget them. But with CSS, it's pretty much similar to C++ and other programming languages. It's / and an asterisk to start the comment. So this is the start of the comment, and you need to end the comment with an asterisk and /. You can have multi-line, so that the comment start in this line, as long as you're typing a comment, and it will wait until you end the comment with the asterisk and /. The browser doesn't display comments. Comments is for you or other developers. But with comments, we can place warnings, description, and other notes. Comments are also important for debugging CSS. We can use comments for searching for errors. CSS comments can be added. The text are between the / and asterisk. And so as you can see, it starts with a / and it should end with a /. And then between is the text, and there is 2 asterisks surrounding your text. Very straightforward. I like the syntax much better than the HTML comment, which is a little bit complicated. It's like you put the tag, exclamation mark, 2 dashes, then the comment, then the 2 dashes, and you close it. But again, usually Visual Studio Code can generate the wrapper of the comments for you. Any questions? Let me show you something real quick. This is, I'm going to put a comment here, universal selector. What if I don't want to use classes, but I also want to select multiple elements? Okay, so let's say multiple selection. Let's say I want to target H1, make it color green. Okay, but not only the H1s, I want also the paragraphs. You can target multiple elements by only adding a comma here. So now I'm going to select the second element, which in that case, a paragraph. So you're telling all the H1s and all the paragraphs, they should have the color green. And you use a comma here to separate them. Okay, doesn't matter the space is not a big deal. And if you hover over it, so you see it will select H1 and paragraph. I don't think the space should make any effect. Let's see. So you see now the H1 and the paragraph both are green. And this is very good because now I don't have to write H1 color green and then make another one paragraph color green, right? So I can tackle both of them in the same CSS selector. And also I don't have to give both of them classes. So it's a great shortcut. So I want you to know that you can select multiple elements or putting multiple selectors, but you need to separate them with a comma. Okay. Also, let me add another note. You can add multiple classes. So let's say this is class error, and I can add another class, put the same element to another group of classes. I can say title. And this is another title. So now the H1 here belong to the title group and also belong to the error group. The H2 belong to the title group and it's belong to the error group. However, the paragraph is only belong to the error group or class, but it's not belong to the title. So let me ask you this question. What if I do dot title color orange? Which element will be colored with that color, with the orange color? What do you think?
H1 and H2?
That's correct. The paragraph is not belong.
Yes.
Yeah. The title, I mean, the paragraph is not belong to that class in that case, right? What if I put an error color red? That's a little bit hard to know, but which one will take an effect? Because now, yeah, because 3 of them, but now the H1 should be orange or should be red, or the H2 should be orange or should be red.
Oh,
Because H1 and H2 belong to the 2 groups, right?
Yep.
That's like a tricky
Yes.
question here. Well, let's see. They will all be red. Why? Because I executed this CSS after this one. Remember when I said yesterday the cascading rule?
Oh,
yeah.
Whatever
yeah.
comes, that the most newer one will take an
One
effect.
overwrites the first one.
Yes. So now, yes, the H1 now belong to error and title, and H2 belong to error and title, but the error is the most newer one, and H1 and H2 would happen to belong to that class, and now both of them will be red, right? Let me show you another trick as well. What about if I put here H1? What do you think? Is all of them going to be red? Don't feel bad if you don't know it, because that's what the reason I'm explaining more cases with you, so you can fully understand how stuff happening behind the scene. So let's take them one by one. Let's take some votes. It's okay to be right or wrong. H1, what do you think the color? Orange or red?
I think red.
Red. H2?
Also
Okay,
red.
don't red. And the paragraph definitely red,
Red.
right? But now, what if I told you the way that CSS work, it's not only what comes the last, it will select the more specific one. Is dot error in H1 is more specific than H1 element was a class title? Which one is more specific? This is more specific, right? Statement. Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yes.
each one is more specific.
Yes.
Yes.
So even though I trying to override it, but this is more specific, so that will take an effect. So in that case,
Oh.
H1 will be orange.
Oh.
Okay?
There-
Because
I see. I see.
yes, as I said, this comes after this, and we said by the cascading, the most newer selector will take an effect, but by also how specific you are, and usually that's the way CSS work. Here I'm more specific. I'm targeting an H1 that also have a class. So you see when I say the word and, so it's H1 and have a title as a class. Here, I'm just looking for any element that have the class
Yeah.
element. So now let's check this one. Is it H1? Yes. Is it have the class title? Yes. So this is more specific. So it will be orange in that case. Here, is H1? No. Is it have the class title? Yes. Is it have the class error? Yes. But the class error overrided the title. All right? Because now, even that's not going to work with any other element except H1, right? This declaration is not going to work with any other element. So the H2 is not going to work with H2. It's only working with H1. It's not going to work with the paragraph. It's only working with H1. Any questions? So pay attention how.
Yes. So if I understood you, you gave something similar like this under the HTML. So, but regardless of any specific comments or indicator is always like this under CSS, but on when compared to the HTML that when we took it, it will follow the one preceding it. That is, it overwrites the one on top.
Mhm.
Okay.
Exactly. So if you're
Okay.
comparing two classes, the most recent class will override all classes.
Override the other one. Okay.
But if you're comparing a declaration for a very specific with a declaration that more general, it will take the more specific, even if it comes before the more general one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Another trick. What if now I try to change this to an ID, color orange, and now I will give this guy here ID title. Okay, so I'm targeting the ID, an element that have an ID orange, and class that have an element that have a class error. So in H1 here, it have the class error and it have the ID title. And keep in mind that this class comes after this ID, right? So now the question is, which is more specific? Is selecting an element by ID or selecting an element by class? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And let me tell you the answer. By selecting an element with an ID is more specific to CSS. The reason for that, because you only can call a single element in your page with that ID. So that's very, very specific, right? That your page cannot have more than one element that have that specific ID, right? So in that case, what do you think the H1, based on whatever I explained right now? It's going to be orange or red?
Orange.
Orange, that's correct. Because the ID is more specific than a class. Okay, these are just because sometimes when you do CSS and this stuff that when I started learning CSS, it's like I'm trying to pull my hair out. I was like, why I'm giving that class? Why it's not taking effect? Why it's not? And then you realize that, oh, that's the reason. That's how CSS work. Okay. Any questions before we go to break, guys?
Yes, I have. Actually, I'm not sure if it's gonna be a logical question. I'm coming from completely different background, so sorry in advance.
Okay, no problem.
If you are using inline CSS, in this case, are you gonna need to use ID selector or class selector?
If you're using what?
If you are using inline CSS.
Inline.
Yeah, not external or
No.
Okay.
That's actually a very, very good question. Because if you remember yesterday, we said inline is always have the highest priority.
Yeah.
I can, if I put the style here, and I can now change the color to, let's say, blue. And don't forget the color. That will overwrite anything that you have it inside the internal CSS.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is have the highest priority in the cascading. So in that case, this paragraph, it don't care even if you have the class error or don't care anything. But again, inline styling is not the best practice because now you're mixing the CSS with, you're making the elements, because usually when you add CSS, you don't only want to add one declaration of CSS, you add multiple, right? So you're going to be keep adding here, probably the widths, and other properties, let's say 100%. And then you're going to add another one, and it's going to be, this element's going to be very, very crowded, right? So in that case, it's definitely will overwrite. And some case scenarios, if you want to overwrite a specific CSS Styling sheet, you will do it here. But yeah, it's not the best practice to put it using the styling tag here. Is that answer your question?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys? Kona, this is the ID for the slides. And the lecture is recorded. I believe it's in the YouTube as well. Okay. I'm not sure what is the link for the YouTube. I'll try to take a look at it and paste it in the class chat during the break. All right, so let's take a 15-minute break. And after we come back from the break, we can start the box model, because definitely we need to break here. The box model is a lot of properties that we need to cover for the box model, and a good understanding of box model will make you fully understand what is CSS is about. And I think now you have the link is actually pasted in the chat, Kona. All right, so it's 8:06. Let's take a 15-minute. I'll be back exactly 8:20. Okay. I'll see you guys 8:20. Okay, guys, welcome back. And let me start sharing my screen to go over the box model. Box model, it's very important to understand what is a box model in CSS. Okay, there is multiple properties that define what is an element, how it look like, how it's gonna render in your page. Let's say I have a paragraph. This paragraph have some text. This text is the content of the paragraph. Okay. If I want to draw a border around the paragraph, then the border will be drawn in this field. But between the text and the border, there is some space that you can control. And this space, you can use the padding property. So you can put the text away from the border internally inside the element by using the padding property. And we're going to go over the padding property in detail. But what if you want to control the space that's outside the element? In that case, it's called margin. Let's say you're creating 2 binds, and these binds sitting right next to each other. Okay. And now you want to push them away from each other. So you control the space between them. You use the padding or the margin. What do you think?
Margin?
Margin, because this space is outside the bind, right? So you're controlling the space that's outside the bind, not inside the bind. The space is the inside the bind is what the text inside the bind, like let's say, click me. If I want the box to be of the button very big and the click me here, this is the border of the button, and this is the padding, which is between the text and the border. Now, if I increase the padding, the button will get bigger. But if I want to push the 2 buttons away from each other, I will control the space that's outside the button, and I'm going to use the margin to increase the margin between them. So the space between them, which is outside the button, get increased. And that's the whole idea, is you need to ask yourself, do I want to increase the space outside the element or inside the element with the text? Okay. So all elements in HTML file is considered as boxes, including the paragraphs, including H1s, the heading, the UL, list items. all of them are boxes of components or elements in your page. The box model term is used to describe the box that is surrounding the element. It consists of margins, borders, padding, and the content. Of course, when I put a paragraph, you don't see a border because there is no border. I never define a border. But if I'm going to happen to add a border, it's going to sit between the text of the paragraph and the space between it. Okay, so the content is the content of the box or the text. The padding, a transparent area that's surrounding the text. The border is just the border. If you draw a border around the content, the element or the paragraph in my example, it will be between the text and the border. You will have the padding. The margin is anything outside the element. Okay, and you can actually visually see that using the developer tool. So if I open any of my examples here, if I open it with live server, and let's open the developer tool. Let's go to the body. See, I'm highlighting the H1. Do you see the blue and the orange highlight in the element? You guys see that, right? Now the element's highlighted. If I go to the H2, it's having blue and it have orange. If I go to the paragraph, it have blue and the orange. That's actually showing me the box model of this paragraph, showing me the box model of this H2, showing me the box model for this H1. And to get a reference here, I click this, the first H1, here's the box model for it. It tells you that the content, this is the content, it's 1228 pixels width, which is the width of the screen that it's taking, and a height of 37 pixels. There is no padding. You see, if I put padding, it will be color as green. There is no border. I never set a border, but there is a margin, which in that case, the orange spaces that you have. So that will tell me that's my H1 is this element, and the space outside this element, which are the margins, are the orange color. And now if I select the margin again, you see, these are the margin. But the question now, where is this margin coming from? Read here. This is coming from my HTML page. You have some margins here. And this is the default of the browser coming from the browser. So the browser will give this H1 a default margin, okay, which is a space outside because it don't want the text to be stick on top of each other, right? Because if there is no margin, this text will be stick after this text right away underneath it. So again, you can see the margin visually and the padding. In that case, we don't have any padding. We can see the border and we can see the text content. Let's select the paragraph. It tells me that the height of the paragraph is 18 pixel, that the height, the width is 1283, and it have a margin of 16 pixel top and bottom. So the height of that margin or the space outside that element is 16 pixel. And I don't have any space inside the element. Okay. So you see how helpful this tool is. You can visually see and get the values of the margins, the padding or anything, which we're going to explore in detail. What is the margin? What is the padding? And play around with them. But any question about the box model in general? Margin outside the element, padding inside the element. The border is the border of the element. That's the outline of your element. Okay. Let's explore the first property that we have, which is the border. So again, in that case, to describe a box model, we need a margin, we need a border, we need a padding. 3 different properties. Okay, let's go over the border first. Then we're going to go over the margin. Then we're going to go over the padding with examples, of course. CSS borders. We're going to go over the border properties. What properties that will let you control any element border. Probably want to put a border, color it, control its thickness, the style of it, and the width, of course. So you have the border style. What kind of style of what kind of border? You want just a solid line, or you want a dash line, or you want dotted line? What kind of border you want? That's controlled by the border style. Border width is the thickness of the border. You can make it very thick border, or you want to make it very thin. And border widths in that case take number of pixels. Let's see the first property. The CSS border properties define the style, the width, and the color of the border. If you take this example, here, this is a dotted box. This is dashed. This is solid. This is double dash box. So all of these types are the styles. So it's a border style. You can control the thickness of the border by the border width. And all of the styles should start with the word border. And the way CSS work with the naming of their properties, if it's 2 words, you separate them with a dash. Like the background color, remember the background color, you type in background, then a dash, then the color. So in that case, if I want to use a style, I'm going to write a border, 1 word, dash, style. This is the property name. If I want to control the color of the border, I'm going to type in border, 1 word, dash, color. This is the property that will let me change the color of the property of that element. Okay. So let's start with the very first CSS property, border style. So here is a list of all the styles that you can use. You can use hidden, you can use none. What is the difference between hidden and none? None means none. It have 0 lengths. It have 0 thickness. But hidden, it could have 5 pixels, but I'm hiding it. So it will take 5 pixels from the surrounding, but I'm hiding it. So it will add some extra space to the element, right? But it's hidden. You can use this outset, which is give you the illusion like this text is going up. You can use inset, that like this text has been pressed. You can use rigid, which is look like this, groove, double, solid, dashed, and dot. 99%, you're just going to use the solid. And again, you don't have to memorize them. I will show you how you can get a list of this properties values. Okay. Now let's explore this. So let me open the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to put a file here, border styles. .css. No, not .css, .html. Or actually, it can be css.html. Create a boilerplate real quickly. Close this file. I will add a couple of paragraphs. And now give this one is ID. Let's say paragraph or para 1. Let's give this one ID, para 2, and give each of them specific ID, so we can select them easily using the CSS. 4, and finally the 5th paragraph. Okay, and I'm just going to have an H1 here describing what is this page about, which I'm going to say CSS Border Properties. Okay, good. And also here, I'll put this as the page title as well. Now, let me add the style tag. And I'm going to target the first paragraph, and it's an ID. So I'm going to put the hashtag para-1. And I want to set its border style. So we want to see the style of the border or define the style of the border. So border, and you don't have to memorize it or just type it. You just put BOR, and it will list all the properties, CSS properties that start with BOR. In that case, we want to use the border style. See, once you select it, it will drop down with all the values that you can use. So you don't have to memorize it. You want dashed, dotted, double, groove, hidden, the one that you want to select. I want to put the solid one first. Okay. So let's see how this is look like. Let me edit side by side. So now this first paragraph is surrounded with a border, as you can see, right? Now let's select the second paragraph. To border style, and I will make it dashed. So you see the second one now, it's surrounding with this dashed border. Notice that there is no spacing between the text and the border. If I want to increase the space here between the text and the border, do you remember which property responsible for that? Margin or padding? Between the text and the border. Inside. Padding. Inside is always padding. Outside is margin. So this is margin. But between the text and the border is padding. Okay, now let's see more. 3.
Is there a way to change the dash style, or is it just the default, like thickness and everything?
Definitely, you can, the thickness, you can make it thicker. Definitely, you can change the color, but it's a different styles. It's different properties that we're gonna explore. But
Okay,
for
thank
now, yeah, definitely you can change the thickness. You can change anything with CSS. That's how beautiful it is. Let's, and instead of dashed, let's put dotted. Here we go. This is dotted. And I'm just going to select 5 of them. Para 4, border style, and let's take the groove so you can see the groove. So it will have this like a gray color surrounding the border. of course, you can change the color of it as well. And we will definitely in a little bit. But again, the whole idea here to understand that if you want to change how the border look like around the element, it's the property that called border style. And the final one, I'm going to use the outset. You see the outset, you see it like it shaded down here. Here's light color, the top and the left in light color or right light gray, and the bottom and the left and the right, I mean, in darker color. So I give you the illusion like it's raised from the page. Of course, the inset, it's the opposite. The top and left is going to be dark, bottom and right will be light. See, give you the illusion that you press on it, the page. I'm just gonna, if you forget or the list gone, you can always tell Visual Studio to help you by pressing Control and space, and it will load what is the available values. Control and space, it will give you the list again. So in that case, I want to use the inset. Okay. Any question about the border style? How it can affect the style of the border? Okay. Again, this is all the available border. Of course, you have the double, which is double lines. Okay. We did the same example here. 5. Okay, that's actually a nice example here. You can control and pay attention here because we will use this trick later on as well. You can play around and select like the top to be one style, the right to be different style, and the bottom to be a completely different style, and keep specifying the styles for every single side of the box or of the border in that case. How you can do that? The way that CSS work, it's go clockwise. So if you put a value, 4 values, if I put 4 values here, it's always start from the top, then the right, then the bottom, then the left. So you start from the bottom clockwise. Okay? Top, right, bottom, and left. Okay, now we know that you always start from the top. So I can set the top to be solid. Now I'm going to put 4 different values, separate them with space. Solid, I'm going to put 4 values, solid, I'm going to put double, and then dashed, and then dotted. That means since I put 4 values, and again, this is not only for the border style, it's for the margin and padding. We're going to explore margin and padding, but you can add 4 values here. If you put 4 values, this will be top, right, bottom, and left. Why? Because you start from the top and you go clockwise from the sides. So let's see how that looks like. So the solid is in the top, the double is in the right, the dashed is in the bottom, and the dotted on this side. Let's put it again, but instead of using 4, let's use 2. Or let's try 3 of them and see what is that going to happen. Okay, see the 3 here? This 3 value, that means top is solid. Then the double will be the right and the left. So it will take top, bottom, and the one in the middle will be for left and right. Okay. you can add only 2 values. And notice that every time I add a border style, it will override the previous one, right? So if I put 2 values, that means the first one will be top and bottom will be solid. Left and right will be double because you're only putting 2 values. So you can provide 4 values, 3 values, 2 values, or a single value. And this is not only for border style, for many other properties in CSS. And they always go clockwise. Always you start from the top. If you're having only 2 values, so the first value will be top and bottom, then left and right. So here you see solid and double. Solid is the top and bottom. Double is left and right. Okay. And of course, you can add a single one, which is solid, which is going to be the whole 4 corners. So you put 4 values, it's going to be top, right, bottom, left. If you put 3 values, there's going to be the top, this is going to be the bottom, the middle one will going to be for the left and the right. You put 2 values, the first one will be for the top, bottom, the second one will be for the left and the right. Oh, sorry, forget the style here. And again, you will see me using that in multiple other elements. Any questions about the border style?
Can you please tell this first one?
This one?
Yes.
Okay. You start with the top and you go clockwise. Once you're in the top, which the second side you see? Right side, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is right. Then you hit the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Bottom. And then finally is the left, right?
Yes, thank you.
So when you have 4 values, it's always clockwise, starting from the top. You always start from the top. In that case, top, bottom, and the middle one is going to be the left and right. Top and bottom, left and right. This will be everything technically. And this syntax, it's heavily used with multiple properties. So a good understanding of this syntax that sometimes you can provide 4 values, 3 values, 2 values, or 1 value. So let's talk about the border widths. This is another CSS style. And of course, you separate them with dash when you write the property border widths. So let's control the border widths. For example, border widths, the border width property define the width of the borders. The border width property can have from 1 to 4 values. So this one also accepts 1 to 4 values. If I put 1, it's going to affect the 4 corners of the border. If I put 2, it's going to affect top and bottom and left and right. Technically, the border width is the thickness of the border, right? And what is the minimum thickness that you can use is 1 pixel. Or 0 pixel, that means it's going to disappear, right? But 1 pixel is the minimum thickness. And you can increase the number, 2 pixels, 3 pixels, 5 pixels, as many number of pixels that you want. Let's explore this one. So I'm going to go to the first paragraph. I'm going to do the border width to be 1 pixel. Oh, this is the second one. You see now it's much lighter because this is paragraph 2. If I use it for the first one, you see now the line thickness is very thin. If I go for the borders, I mean, for the second paragraph, border width. And if I put, in that case, 2 values, so let's put 1 pixel and 5 pixels. What does that mean? Based on the same concept here. So 2 values. The first value is for
Top and bottom.
top and bottom. 5 pixels, which is the thickness of the left and right, will be 5 pixels. So let's see. See now, the top thickness is very thin, and this is very thick from the sides. Okay, let's make it 3, so you can see it's actually dashes. Okay, what about the next one? Widths, 1 pixel, 2 pixels, and 5 pixels. Well, let's put 3 pixels here. So what is the first value will be?
The top is 1 pixel. The
Mhm.
two sides are 3 pixels, and the bottom is
bottom.
5 pixels.
Exactly. You see here? You can even see the dotted. It's so tiny.
Yes.
And the sides here are 3 pixels, and the bottom one is big dots. Let's do the last one. Border widths, 1 pixel, 3 pixel, and 5 pixels, and 8 pixels. Top.
The top is 1 pixel.
Mhm.
The right is 3 pixel. The bottom is 5 pixel, and the left
8 pixels.
is 8
That's
pixels.
excellent. So you see now, thin, getting thicker here, getting more thicker, and finally, this is the thickest side, which is 8 pixels. All right, so I believe you guys get the concept here, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that's how you can control the thickness of the border of any element. What about the color? We can do the color, same thing. Let's do the color. So border, color, let's do red. So this is the second one. You see, it's now red. First one, border, color, blue, and now it's blue. Also, you can use the same concept with colors. Let me go to 4 here. Border, color will be red, blue. So what does that mean for the paragraph number 4? The top and bottom will be red, the left and right will be blue. Oops. Save it here. You see now, top and bottom red, left and right are blue. Okay. Any questions? And of course, you can add 4 values for every single corner of the border. But it that mean every time I'm going to add border style, border widths, border color? As a matter of fact, no. There is a shorthand with the CSS. So if you want to use some of these properties or all of them, you just, instead of border style, border widths, border color, you can simply use border and start putting your values. So in that case, I'm going to put solid, green, 2 pixels. And the order is not a matter here. It's not a big deal. I can put the 2 pixels in the beginning, the solid in the second, and the green the last. But this is a shorthand for this 3 properties. So let me put it here, shorthand. And you will see that margins will have shorthand, padding have a shorthand, and so on. You see now that this is 2 pixels, green, and solid. Okay. You can also, if you want to only control the top border, you can be more specific, saying border top. So you have the word top, bottom, left, and right. And you can, this is, in that case, I'm using the shorthand version with the border top. So I can make the border top 5 pixels, or let's do 2 pixels, solid blue. So you see now, I'm affecting only the top. And you can replace the word top with bottom, left, and right. So in that case, you're targeting them, and instead of with the values, you can target them with the words here. So if instead of top, I can put bottom, and you see now the blues in bottom, right, blues in the right, and finally left. And this is, of course, the shorthand, but I'm applying it to the border left, not to the 4 borders. Okay, same concept will be for the margins and the paddings. I'm spending more time here so you get the idea how the border works, because when we're going to do it in the margins and paddings, it's going to be the same idea. You can do margin left, padding left, margin top, padding bottom, and so on. Any questions before we move to the margins?
Sorry, I just want to reconfirm. With the shorthand, we have 5 paragraphs here. So with the shorthand, can I use that to apply multiple changes on all the 5 paragraphs at once?
You can do if all 5 paragraphs having the same class, right?
Okay.
So if they all have the same class, you target all of them with the class name, and you put the shorthand, 1 line.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But now I'm using IDs.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's explore CSS margin. And when I said margin, is outside the element. So you have some margin properties, shorthand property, and auto and value also. This is something that we're going to talk about probably after the break. But let's explore the margin properties. Margin property. The margin property is used to create a space outside the border of the element. There are 4 different properties for setting the margin for each side of the element, because the space can be from the top, from the bottom, the left, or the right. You have 4 different spaces surrounding the element. You can also use the same extensions where dash top, dash right, dash bottom, and dash left, similar that we used it in the border. But in that case, we controlling the margin. So we have CSS property for the margin. So it is the space outside the element. The margin property can take pixels, which is defined, or any lengths. Technically, you can use rems and ems, but this is a different topic. You can use centimeter, you can use inches. You can specify a quantity that the screen can be measured. But most of the time, if you're going to use a fixed number, 99%, you can use pixels, or if you're getting a little bit more advanced, you're going to use rem. Don't use m. It will mess up your code. You can use percentage of your the parent element. So if I have let's say a paragraph, and this paragraph is inside the div, so it's going to be percentage of the width of that div, right? Or the margin is going to be percentage based on its parent, or the containing element in that case, not based to the screen. If it's have nothing, no parent element, or no containing element, then the screen or the body will be the parent element in that case. And the auto, the length of the margin is calculated automatically by the browser for you. And I'll give you an example about auto and inherit. Inherit, you simply inherit the margin of the containing element or the parent element. Okay, let's do some margins. That's the first paragraph. I want to push the second paragraph away from it. I want to push the second paragraph down. So which property I'm going to use? Margin top, margin bottom for the paragraph number 1. So I want to control this, the space that outside paragraph 1 with the connection of paragraph 2. What do you think?
Margin bottom for paragraph 1?
Yes, margin bottom for paragraph 1. And let's say I want to push it down 10 pixels. and you barely see it. Let's put 50 pixels so you can see the difference. See, now it's pushed down, right? I can put 50 pixels. I'm pushing everything 50 pixels down there. Let's put 100 pixels. See, let's keep pushing them down. What if I want to push this paragraph inside to the screen like this? Margin, left or right? If I want to push this paragraph in that direction.
Left.
Left, exactly. Because this space here, I want to increase it, right?
Yes.
So margin, left, let's do 50 pixels. See, the paragraph is pushed in that direction. Now, what if I want to push this paragraph 1 to the bottom? So I'm controlling the space in the top of it, right?
Yes. Margin.
Margin top. 50 pixels. Okay. Also, you can use margin by itself and use either 4 values, 3 values, and 2 values, or 1 value. For example, if I put 1 value, 50 pixels, what is that supposed to mean? Just 1 value.
It's
I
gonna
guess-
affect for
4 corners,
yeah.
the 4 spaces surrounding this element will be 50 pixels. See, 50 pixels from the top, 50 pixels from the bottom, and 50 pixels from the sides as well. If I put it 50 and 100 pixels, top and bottom 50, left and right 100 pixels. And you can go 3 and 4 and controlling every single one of them. Same idea as the border. Okay, so you can use identify margin top, left, bottom, or any of them, or you can be specific with just the general margin, and you can use it with 4 values, 3 values, or 2 values. Any question about the margins?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Like she said earlier, I don't have a background on this. Like I'm still learning. So I'm just thinking if I am dealing with symbols on my page, like a triangle right now, and I need to put up for my clients with this CSS, like what you've put us through now, is it possible for me to use this to
Create a triangle?
yeah, for example? Yeah.
To create a triangle, simplest way you can get an image of triangle. That's the simplest way you can do it. But it's a little bit more advanced because you technically want to use a div that no content, there is no text in the triangle, right? So a div, and then you can control its width, its thickness, and in that case you can use the border, or you can give the color of that div and you give it some heights and widths, and then you can rotate it when you get advanced. In that case, I can create this line and rotate it in the angle, create a second line and create a third line, and then I can put the shape together. That's one way to do it. Another way, the easiest way will be getting a picture for a triangle and put it in the page.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
the
there's
picture of the guy yesterday. That was what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah. So there is multiple ways to skin a cat here. So as a developer, you will always have multiple choices to be able to do the trick.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. So that's for margin. You're always controlling the space. The shorthand property, which we just covered, you can put 4 values in that case. And here in this example, 50, 10, 150, 50 pixel as a margin. This is a shorthand. So 50 is going to be the top. 10, it's a clockwise. It's going to be here, 10 pixels. 150 You see it's pushing the next paragraph all the way down, 150 pixels, and finally 50 pixels. Okay. Now, let's see a different, let's say paragraph 2. I want to do margin bottom 25%. Okay. What is 25% in that case? It's going to be 25% of my page, because what is the parent element of this paragraph 2? So this is paragraph 2. What is the parent element? Is the body, right? So the body containing everything here. The body is your screen. So I want to get 25% of my screen. So if you divide this screen, the height of it, this is the 25% of the height of the screen. And in that case scenario, you can always inspect, get here, you can get the computed value. So if I hover over this paragraph here, which is paragraph 2, you see all this orange color. See, it tell me here that the margin is 320.750, and that's exactly the quarter of the height of my screen, because I put it the margin bottom to be 25%. Okay, and if you select the computed value, you can get the exact number of the margin bottom. I put it as 25%, and that will be calculated as 320.75 pixels. You can see not this have a, this is the margin. Okay. Any questions before we go to break? You guys feeling comfortable using the the developer tool to debug or to see visually how does the elements look like in your document? Okay, let's actually, before we go to break, we cover the other cases, 3 margins. You know by now what is 3. The first value is top. The middle one was going to be left, right, and left, and the final one is going to be the bottom if you have 3 values, similar as we did in the border. If you have 2, top and bottom, left and right, as we did with the border as well. This is the shorthand values. Another option to use top, bottom, left, and right if you want to be more specific, if you want to target any of them. Auto value. Let's explain that when we get back from the break. Let's take a, it's going to be a short break because we still have a lot to cover. Let's get exactly 9:15. And I'm sorry, it's a little bit short, like almost 10 minutes, but we still have more slides to cover over the batting. So I'm just going to grab a water in this 10 minutes. So I'll see you exactly 9:15, guys. Okay, welcome back. I'm sorry it was a quick break, but there is more to cover in today's class. Let me start by sharing my screen. Now let's talk about the auto value. And you need to understand that the auto value only affect your left and right side. So it's affecting the margins from the left and the right, not the top and bottom. So the auto will always find, or actually you can use it with the top and bottom, not vertically. No. Usually it will calculate the space that you have. Pay attention to what I'm saying. The space that you have. So let's say I have a paragraph here. And this is the rest of the space in my page. The browser will calculate this space and it will distribute it between the left and the right. So that will center the paragraph in the middle of my page. Okay, so you can use the auto to center anything in the middle of the page. Let's try this. And I'm going to put anything with underline there. Okay, because I will show you what is the problems that you might find when you're using the auto value. So let's play around, or let's first read the text of the auto. Here you have an H1 paragraph, which is part of one. This is an example of a margin property, and the select margin auto, which in that case, top and bottom, left and right. But you don't see this element get centered. And I'm going to tell you why. So the margin property can be set to auto. The browser will calculate the margin and horizontally, only horizontally, left and right, center the element. But you might be arguing why this element is not centered. It does look centered to me, right? And let me show you what is the problem here. Let me comment all these margins, and even for the paragraph one. So I have this first paragraph, and I want to center it. So based on the slides, you can put margin auto, and you'll see nothing change. And you'll be scratching your heads like, why? Alfred told me margin auto will center this paragraph, and it's not centered. Why do you think it's not centered? Again, as a developer, part of your job to question everything. Why do you think? The reason for that, because the paragraph taking the whole space, taking the whole width, so there is no extra space to put it in the left and right, right? It's already filling my screen, so it can't be centered. And the reason it's taking all the space, because as I mentioned yesterday, by default, elements, some elements like the paragraph is block level, and a block level element take the whole space of the whole line. It's block. This whole block has been reserved. So how we can solve this problem? Very simple. You have it, instead of let the paragraph take the whole width, you can set the exact width you want this paragraph to be. So I can set the width of the paragraph to, let's say, 100 pixel. And now it gets centered because I fixed the width to be exactly 100 pixel. And now I have extra space outside this paragraph. It's not, again, the block level take whole space. I want to limit the width of my paragraph. I put the width here, width property, to 100 pixel. So now I have extra space outside the element that the browser can automatically distribute it between the right and the left and the right in that case. And it will be centered. Here we go. Doesn't matter how you increase the size of the browser or shrink it, it will be always staying at the center. And that's what margin auto will give you. But make sure you already have extra space so the browser can be distributed between the left and right. Questions?
So they use both together, right? Margin and width, margin outer.
Not together. It depends. Some elements for example, if the image probably have a fixed width, right? Then the image will be a little bit tricky, and I'll describe that why a little bit later. But for now, yes, we want to, if it's a block level that taking the full width, then I want to limit its width. And width can take a percentage as well. I can put it as 25% of my screen. So that's going to be 25% of my screen. And the rest, which is going to be 75% of my screen, will be distributed in the left and right. So you're the developer, you can control how it look like, right? But most of the time, yes, you want to use the width. Most of the time. Again, auto, width 25, and of course you can set the height here. You can set the height, let's say 100 pixel. And now you're having height here for this paragraph, 100 pixel. Okay, so width and height are CSS properties that can control the width and height of any element. I'm just going to comment the height here. And that's margin auto. It's just simply going to center any element that you want. Again, I'm going to put an underline for any element. And let me show you actually, let's explore that. Let's say I have here a link, a tag that will go to href. It's not going to go anywhere, so I can put a hashtag here. It's not going to go to any external link. This is my link here. Now, this link, I can target it like this and add a border to it, 1 pixel, solid black, or let's do blue. What do you notice right now? That it's not a block level element, so it's not going to take the full width, right? Because anchors are inline, or the links are inline elements, similar to images. Images are inline elements. Now, what if I want to control the width of it? Let's say 100 pixel. And it's now working. What about the height? 100 pixel. It's now working. What about the margin auto? It's now working. So what's going on? Inline elements, none of these properties, height or width, will affect them. They only take the text height, whatever height it will need, and whatever width it will need. It doesn't matter what is the width you put, what is the height. Okay, what if I want to control the width and height? You can switch. If it's inline, you make it block programmatically using a CSS property, or you can convert any of the block elements to inline element as well. So the property that you use is called display. How you want to display this element. So I can do display, and I want to display it as a block level element to be able to control its width and to be able to control its height. And now once you make it block, that will unlock the width and the height. So the note to take here is inline elements where you can see, you can search for them. There's like inline versus block level elements, and probably going to get you the W3 school as a reference page. They will explain them, and they will list down here all the elements that they are inline. So you can come here, you see that the link is inline, and it will list also, this is inline element. Should list all the block level elements as well. Here we go, the block level element. Like a paragraph, div, you probably UL or LI, the all block level element. That's that default behavior of the browser. but you can change that with the display property. You can select it to make it block. You can make it block, taking the full space. You can control its width. You can control its height. Up to you. Inline, it take only whatever it's need. So you can control the width. You can control the height. And in that case, you can use margin auto with it. But again, this is off the topic, but I believe it's important to understand how you can switch an element from block to inline. Any questions? I remember when I started CSS, I tried to give an element of width and it's not working. I was like, why it's not working? And then you go and search, but it takes some experience to understand this kind of stuff. It's like, hey, the anchor tag or the link is inline, so it's allow other elements to be right next to it. You have to change that in order to control its width and height. Okay. And in that case, margin auto will work with the anchor. And that's also the image are inline. So you need to change them to block if you want to center an image in the middle of the page. Because by default, if you go back here to inline versus block elements, and if you go for the inline, you will see that the image is an inline element. So you can't use margin auto with it, right? In order to use margin auto with it, you have to show it as a block, in that case, to be able to center an image. Okay. Inherited value. To inherit a value, go ahead. Any question?
I'm sorry, I know this might be a little bit out of place, but I'm just thinking about all these people that are always sending out phishing mails out. I know I do see some kind of funny mails that you see an element like this in the center of the mail or some, like, I don't know how they do it. Like, out of curiosity, based on what you've just explained, I wonder how let me say the fraudsters, how they send out such phishing mails. And sometimes if you're not careful, you may just click on them because they are in the center, or they are some conspicuous corner in the body of either on the website or a text or a mail or something.
Okay.
I don't know if you get what I'm asking.
Yes. So you can get an email that look like a page, and that's how advertisement work. They send you an email that inside the email there is links, and it's like look like an advertising and have a buttons, and you click this button, it take you to somewhere else. Yes, there is an HTML inside this email, and to send this kind of emails, you don't actually type them. There's softwares to do this kind of emails, and you can actually send programmatically. You can type a software that will send email to hundreds and thousands of people, and that's probably going to be a couple of lines of using a server like a Node.js or Python. There is libraries that you can use either to send a text message, because at the end of the day, text messages are just emails. You're just sending a text message as an email in the software, and you receive it through phone. Yes, but in the only way you do it, you have to do it programmatically through a software, or either you write your own software, or there is like phishing application that you can download them and type your email. But again, the body itself, it's pure HTML. That's how you see the pictures, how you see the buttons and everything.
Yes,
it is.
HTML. They're usually HTML. Yes,
they are. And also the advertisement, you receive something from the pharmacy or from the mall or from, it's all having pictures, links, and all that. It's HTML and CSS.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, what about inherit value? Inherit value is, let's take a look. We have a div here, and inside this div, we have a paragraph. Let me actually do this example. So I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to give it an ID. You can call it anything, but I'm going to call it parent. Okay. I'm going to have a paragraph here. I'm going to give it an ID of child. This paragraph is inside a div. Okay. So now let me put some styling here. I'm going to control the parent div, give it a background color of yellow so I can see it. And I'm going to control this paragraph, which is child, or change its CSS by using the ID child. It's a child because it's inside the parent. So that's terminology is very widely used. So if I have another paragraph, child 2, so that's mean these two paragraphs are siblings, okay, because they are in the same level and he shared the same parent. Okay. So the child paragraph border 1 pixel solid red, and I'm going to give it background color of green so we can see. So if I take a look at this right now, this next solution, so you see the paragraph here, it taking the whole parent, taking the whole space because the div is just empty element. So in order to see the div, I need to margin this paragraph a little bit to put some space outside it between the paragraph and the div, right? So I can do margin of 20 pixels. And now I'm putting some space outside my paragraph just to see the div. And here we go. And let me let's do increase it a little bit, 100 pixel. And it's only controlling the left and right. But if you want to see it, you can give the width and height to that parent. So I want to set its width 100% and its height to be 300 pixel, or let's do 200 pixel. Yeah, let's do it this way. And in that case, I don't need to use a margin at all. So this box or this div, I'm giving a width and a height, okay? And now you see that this is the div and this is the paragraph. And of course, you can move the paragraph inside it using the margin. So I can do margin top 50 pixels. And it's not taking effect. In this case scenario, let's inspect, see why it didn't accept. So it's actually accepted my margin, but it's put it outside this paragraph. And I know why, because the styling we put it for. But again, this is a little bit off the topic. In order to fix this problem, I need to remove the styling here. And you see that this here, in order to push this down, in that case scenario, I need to use the padding, which we didn't cover now. So let's not do that right now. But anyway, I have the parent, which is that div, and I have the child, which is this paragraph. Now, what I want is, I want to give the parent a margin of, let's say, 50%. Okay. It's not, it should be down there. Yep. That's too much. Let's do 20% of the page. Let me put it side by side. Let me close the developer. So 20% of my page going to be the top, the left, bottom, and right. No question about that. What about the child? I can also add margin inherited from the parent. Okay, so if I put margin and I set the value to inherit, look what's going to happen. It's not going to control the top and bottom, of course. If the top is here, this is the margin top. But the left and right will be 20% of the width of the parent, which whatever width is the parent is. Let me put it a little bit. This width, I inherit the value of the 20% from the parent to take this to be 20% of the width of my parent, and this to be 20% of the width of my parent. And the width of my parent itself is been pushed by 20% of the page. This is 20% of the page. This is 20% of div width. Okay, so I inherited the value in that case from the parent because I said the 20% for my parent, and I can inherit it to the child by using the inherit value. That's not only for margin. You can use inherit with any other value. Like, for example, the background color, I can inherit that. What was the background color here? Yellow. So this also, instead of green, I will inherit the yellow here. See, now this is yellow because it's get inherited from the parent. The parent element, you can inherit any values from it by using the inherit value, or you can inherit any property from the parent in that case. Okay. So it's a little bit tricky, and there is some use cases for it, but not all the time. The most important thing is the padding. So we covered margins, we covered border, and the last property we should cover should be the padding in the box model. We mentioned before, padding is the space between the text and its border. So padding property, it have a shorthand similar to the margin and border. You can add 4 values, you can add 3 values, you can add 2 values, or 1 value. And finally, we're going to cover the box sizing property. It's completely separate property, and the inherit value similar to the margin. So padding. You can also use padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. The padding property is used to define the space between the element content, which in that case in the paragraph is the text, and the border. There are 4 different properties for setting the padding of each side of an element. Top, right, bottom, left. You can use lenses, you can use percentage, or you can use the value inherit. You can't, there's no auto for the padding. Okay. And again, for the lenses, you can use either pixels, rems, or ems, or centimeters, or any value. You can use inches as well. But the most wide one, or most one that you're probably going to use, pixels for fixed values. For relative values, you can use percentages. Also, you can use rems. But rems is a little bit advanced, which we're not going to be covered. There's a whole lecture you can spend it on using different lenses in CSS. Okay, what is padding? Is the space between the text and its border. It's the inside space, not the outside space. The inside space here. Okay. So padding property is used to define space between the element content and its border. And as you can see here, they're using padding top, padding right, bottom, and left. let's try that. Let's play with padding a little bit. I'm gonna render my page here. Just gonna comment this example. Get back to my page here. Comment this. And for paragraph 1, I will comment this. I will have full paragraph. For paragraph 1, I can give it background color yellow to make the background color yellow. Save that. Let's do padding top of 5 pixels. Now look at this element now. See, there's 5 pixels inside between the border and the text. Let's do padding bottom of 10 pixels. And now you will have some extra space down there. And again, inline elements, padding will not going to affect them, similar to the margin, similar to the width, similar to the height. You have to convert them to block level elements. In that case, paragraph is a block level element, so padding is working with it. Let's do padding left 30 pixels. See, now it's pushed 30 pixels here. And finally, padding right 50 pixels, which you're not going to see it because all of this is space here, right? So it's not going to, if putting 50 pixels of space here, in addition to the space that I have here, it's not going to make any difference. Okay. You can use shorthand, which is similar to the margin, similar to the border. Let's say I'm going to put 50 pixels and 100 pixels. What is that supposed to mean? This is a shorthand here, 2 values.
The first one more for top and bottom. The second one is for left and right.
Exactly. There you go. So in that case, I get 50 here, 50 here, 100 here, and 100 right here. Okay. Now, what if I want to push this box from the box underneath it? Should I use padding or should I use margin?
Margin.
Margin, of course, because it's control the space that's outside this element. So definitely I want to do margin bottom, let's say 50 pixels. See, now it's controlling the space that between them outside that element. Okay, now, of course, you can use padding with one value, 100 pixel, or let's do 50 pixel. In that case, the 4 corners will be 50 pixels. There you go. So 50, 50, 50. And of course, you have here also 50. So that's padding. It's control the space inside the element. You can use the inherit as well, which will take the same value from its parent. So it will inherit the value from its parent. Okay. Shorthand, you can use 4 values. 4 values is going to be top, clockwise. It's going to be right, bottom, and left. In that case, the bottom. Can somebody tell me what is the padding in the bottom here? What is the value for it based on this example?
30.
Exactly. Exactly. I think you guys get the hang of it, right? Okay. So what about this one? Can somebody tell me what is the padding that's right here based on this example?
20.
20.
Exactly. Top, right and left, RL, and finally bottom. Okay. And of course, you have 2. It's very simple. Top and bottom, left and right. Box sizing. It could be a little bit tricky to understand it, but I'll do my best so you understand the box sizing. So the CSS width property. So when you use the width property, specify the width of the element, content area, only the content area. So if I have a paragraph that have some text, okay, and I set the width here to, let's say, 100 pixel. So my paragraph should be inside this 100 pixels. Okay, so when I use the width, it's control the text, not the padding, not the margin. And now I add 50 pixels as padding. Okay, so the 50 pixels after the text will be added here, and the top and the right as well as 50 pixels. What is the full width of this element now? $100 plus 50 plus 50.
200.
200 pixels, right? And if the element have a specific width, the padding will be added to that element, will make it 200 pixel. But that, as a developer, it will confuse you because you already set the width 100 pixel, but since you added padding, it will make it now 200 pixel because you're adding 50 and 50 here, right? However, there is a way that you can tell the browser, if I'm setting the element to be 100 pixels, and I want to use padding on the sides, 50 pixels, deduct that from the width that I give it for that paragraph. So it will deduct this to be 50 and 50. So the text will take only here 100 pixels. Okay. And usually you want to use with that pattern because you give a number and now that number including your padding inside it, because now you can predict that the width of that element will stay 100. But here it's unpredictable how bigger the element will get to be. And you need to do the calculation and the math for it, right? So how can I tell the browser that I want to use the padding from the width of the element? There is a property it called, here, let's take this example before, it's called box sizing, by the way. This is the property. It is the box sizing. You tell the browser how to calculate the sizing of the box. In the example below, this div is giving the width of 300. And now we're going to add padding of 25 pixels. So 25 pixels here and 25 pixels here. And of course, you're going to have in the top and the bottom, but that's not going to affect our widths. So the total in that case is going to be the 300 plus 25 and 25, so 350 pixels. To keep the widths as 300, not keep adding to the widths, when you add padding, you can use box sizing property. And the value for it is border box. So you're telling the browser, the box sizing, I want it to be the border box. In that case scenario, it will be 300 pixels. You will deduct the 25 pixels here. Sorry, not here. This whole thing will be 300 pixels. And you will put 25 pixels here, which in the middle here, 50 minus 300, it will be 250 pixels for the text content. Okay. Now the question, can I use the border box for some element and other not? Yes, of course. But usually, and that's what I do when I open any project, I use the universal selector for all my elements. Use the box sizing border size. So you can put box sizing border box. That's not only for a specific element, but for all my elements. So now when I set a width of an element, I know now that that padding will be deducted from it. And I don't need to bother which elements. So I will select all my elements in my page, in my app, to be box sizing border size, which is that technique that will deduct the padding from the widths that you set for that element. Not going to be adding them to the widths, because in that case, the element will get bigger and you don't know exactly, you have to do the math for it. Does that make sense? Anybody have a question? Okay. Let's take this example. Take a look at it. Use the box sizing property to keep the widths at 300, no matter the amount of padding. And you notice here they adding the box sizing border box for only this div. So if you have another div, this property will not going to affect the other div. That's why I use it for all the elements in the page using the asterisk or the universal selector. Okay. Inherit value. The margin of an element can be inherited from the parent element. We already know that. And the padding also can be inherited. Both padding, any property can be inherited from the parent. Color, background color, margin, padding, border, you can inherit them from the parent. So it's a value. The value could be inherited. As you can see here, in this example, you have a paragraph that inside a div. So the div in that case is the parent, and the paragraph is the child. You give this div a padding of 20 pixels. So you see now 20 pixels from top, 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here. And in the child, div space, and again, the space here could be a selector. That's a very good point that we didn't go over in the selectors. When you put a space, we covered when you put a comma. If you remember when I said when you put a comma, you're selecting what? Between two elements. You're selecting both of them, right? Right? So if I put div and paragraph, so any div in my page or a paragraph. So the comma means or. Okay. When you use a space, like a div, space, paragraph, that's mean I'm targeting a div, but I'm not actually targeting the div. I'm targeting that any div that have a paragraph inside it. So the paragraph is inside a div. So it's the child. So you put the space here. So if I have another paragraph here that's not inside this div, it's not going to be affected. The paragraph that must be inside a div, that's what is the spaces. Okay, so that div have a child of paragraph, and this styling will affect the paragraph, not the div, because you're selecting now this paragraph. That makes sense? So let's take a quick example so you can get the idea. Okay, I will make a div. And this div, I will add a paragraph. This is a paragraph. I will add a paragraph here outside this div. This is another paragraph. I will add my style here. And I'm going to give the div padding of, let's say, 50 pixels. Background color, let's make it yellow. And now, if I select div, and then I put a space, and then P, short for paragraph, that means I'm targeting a paragraph that is inside a div. And let's do color red. So which paragraph in that case is going to be red color? This one or the second one? Or both of them?
Both of them.
Not. Is this paragraph is inside a div?
No.
Here, what I'm telling CSS that I want a paragraph that is inside a div. That is what is the space mean. Okay, so this paragraph is not inside a div. That a paragraph that the parent of it is a div. Here, this paragraph, the parent of it is the body. But this paragraph, the parent of it is the div. Make sense? So in that case, that paragraph and this CSS will be applied to that paragraph. And even if you hover over it here, you see, give you a div, and it could be other elements, but this paragraph is a child of that div. And if I save that and open it in the browser, you see only this paragraph is red, not the other one, because this is the paragraph that inside the div. Hope that makes sense. Now, let's add a border to the paragraph. Let's do green or blue, 1 pixel, solid. And as I said, the order is not a big deal here for the border shorthand. And let me actually re-render it again. Here we go. I got the border here. Now, I want to inherit the same padding from the map parent. You see the parent here have 50 pixels in the 4 corners. So I want also this paragraph to have the same padding of its parent. So if I put here padding inherit, so this inherit will copy from the parent, the same value, the padding that the parent have. The parent here have a 50 pixel, so it will copy this 50 pixel to the paragraph as well. So if I save that, now the paragraph will have 50 pixels. And if you open that, you can always open your developer tool, and you can check the elements here. Here's the paragraph. You see now the green area is the padding. And if you see here, the padding 50, 50, and 50, 50 here. And the border, of course, 1 pixel. Now let's select the div, which is this div. This is the div, right? You'll see that the padding value 50, 50 here, top and bottom, left and right. So they're equal, right? The parent have the same padding as the child. Why? Because we use the inherit value. So the child will inherit from its parent the same padding. I hope that makes sense. Any questions? Anybody confused? Anybody?
I'm just concerned about the okay, so when we apply the concept of padding, that is, you have 300 pixels. Like, let me use your example. You said 300 pixels, and I want to do a padding of, let's say, 25% on both.
Okay, I see you talking about the box sizing.
That's the left
right?
and the right.
You're talking about
the box sizing, yes. Yes, the
Yes,
box
okay.
sizing. Sorry, I'm taking you back. Yeah, the
No,
box
no, no
sizing.
problem.
Yeah,
problem.
so I'm just concerned about the elements now. This is a paragraph now. If it's not going to affect the layout, that is the way it appears, just like when you were taking us through the header and the rest of it yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got your question. And as a rule of thumb, you should use box sizing for every single page that you're going to develop, because it will make your life easy. Here, it's not a big deal for the reason of that, because I never set the width value, right?
Yes.
So when you're setting a width value, which definitely you want to do when you're developing a web page, here we're just giving simple examples. So let's put the width value and see how it's going to look like, right? So let's add now the widths of the div 300 pixels. Okay. So now you see now I'm limiting the widths to 300 pixel. So let's test that. Let's inspect it here. This is the div, right?
Okay.
And you will see 50, 50, and 300 pixel. So as a developer, I want it from here to here to be 300 pixels. That's why I give the width 300 pixels. But based on whatever I have here, it have 300 pixels plus another 50 and plus another 50. So this is 50 here. And there is actually 300 here. And there is 50 here. So the total now is 400. It's not what I set for the width, right? It's actually more than what I set for the width.
Yeah. So
as a developer, I'm setting my mind, I want only 300 pixel, but since I'm not using box sizing, it will get increase in width as a 400. And now this is not 300 pixel as you as a developer expecting, it's actually 400 pixels.
Okay.
And that could cause a trouble when you're designing a page. And that's why when every single page you're using for all the elements, you want to use the box sizing border box as a rule of thumb. And beside that, you want to also remove any margin or padding that the browser gives to any element, because as you can see, the H1, the browser gives some default, and that's usually as a developer, you're calling resetting the page. You're removing all the default behavior that the browser gives to your page because you want to control how the page should look.
Control. Okay.
So usually when I develop any web page, the first step here is called resetting the page. Reset the browser default styling sheet. I set margin to 0 because the page gives some certain margin to headings and paragraphs. I don't want that. And also setting the padding to 0 and also box sizing to border box. And once I do that, and I'm not sure, let me re-render it again. Now this is 300 pixel, not the one before. And if you try to inspect it, you will see here 50, 50, and there is the content here is 200. So now since I set the div to be 300 pixel, it's follow my command as 300 pixels. And any padding, which I'm setting the padding 50, it will be deducted from this 300 pixel and leave me with only 200 pixels. And now that's how, as a developer, you control what is the width. But you don't want the width to be unpredictable for you as developer.
Yes, there should be uniformity in what you're doing across board.
Yeah, but again, I want to remove margins and paddings, the default one that the browser give, remove everything, remove the styling of the page, and set for all my elements box sizing border box.
Yeah, this tip that you just gave is very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Right. And again, I believe
Everything on 0. Yeah,
I believe the developer tool will help you a lot fully understand because you can see visually here. You see when I highlight over the border, I
Yes.
highlight the context here for this paragraph. Now I'm selecting the div. It tells you that this div, you see now I'm highlighting the margin. It's having all that as a margin, same color. I'm highlighting the padding, which is 50 pixels. And you see here, you have the surrounding of the green and the content here. And you will have all this CSS that we put, and you can uncheck them to see the effect of each of them. So now the widths, I'm removing the widths, it takes the full widths, putting the widths back, and so on.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, we still have a couple of slides for the fonts, but probably I'm gonna cover that tomorrow before the project. Fonts is not hard because I want to show you how you can get custom fonts from online using Google Fonts, and also practice the fonts properties, but we're gonna go over that tomorrow. I know we're off the time right now, but it's the time for quiz, and it's the time to see how much you guys get from this class. So let me start the quiz. Leave this, close everything. You guys ready? Let's start. Should be quick questions. You should go to this web page, enter this PIN number. Time to play. See who's gonna be in the first place. Come on, guys. Don't be shy. It's okay. Need one more player and we can start. 10. Okay, great. Let's start. You can all join. Here's the code. Let me copy that code, paste it here. 6262361. Okay. What is CSS used for? Read the question. The basic structure of a web page. Nothing, it's useless. Styling a website with colors, fonts, layouts, create links. Good job, guys. All correct. Marquee in the first place. What is the definition of CSS? CSS is a type of code that is in the body. CSS is a tag that helps you add colors and background colors. CSS is how you slice, decorate your page. CSS is a type of code in the title. It's pretty simple. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. CSS is how you style, decorate your pages. That's the correct answer. It's not only affecting your body, you can technically, yeah, it's affecting your body, but how it's affected, it's style. You style and decorate. We got Pradeep in the first place. Third question. What is the correct CSS syntax? So you have multiple syntax. And the body here is the selector. So the body is the selector. So you have a selector, value, and name of the property. And in that case, the name of the property is the color, and the value is black. It's correct. You add the selector first, then the curly brackets, and then the property name and its value. For the two students that selected the first one, you don't use colon here between the selector and the property name. That's not the correct syntax. Okay. We got Kona rising up. How do you put CSS in the HTML file without linking to an external style sheet? So without using an external styling sheet, putting a tag name and then a bracket, putting the CSS inside the HTML tags, using the style tag with the curly key. So we don't want to use the external styling sheet. To use an external styling sheet, you use the link tag. Okay. Going once, going twice. Yes, you use the style tag. And you see me in today's class where I use the style tag in the head a lot. Bushra, you coming in the first place. Good. Fifth, which of the following correctly links an HTML file to an external style sheet? Do you use an A tag? Do you use a link tag? And how the attribute get written in the tag? So we want to import an external style sheet in our HTML file, which in that case is it's the name of the style sheet, which is style.css. Okay. This one is the correct one. How come? Why you guys select this? This is a link. This is an external link. Keep that in mind. An external link, and the external link take an href to a URL, not to files. Okay. The link tag where you put in the head is the one that that you put in the head to link to make the connection between the CSS file and your HTML file. Okay. It's a little bit tricky. It's fine. It's related to yesterday's class as well. That's why it's always good to practice. Aitken in the first place now. Inline styles are implemented by. So the inline styling, so we have three styles: linking an external file, using internal CSS using the style tag, or inlining using the style using the proper HTML font property around the text, or inserting the definition into external file, inserting the definition into the HTML tag, copying and pasting the text from a Word document. Okay. The wording here is a little bit tricky, but I hope that you guys get it correctly. It's this one. That's correct. Okay, my bad. You guys can see my screen, right? So if I have a paragraph, I want to make the color red. In the opening tag, I use the style and I put the color red. This is inline styling, and inline styles is in the opening tag. It's inside the HTML tag. Okay. 7, the outermost area of the CSS box model. So what is the outermost area? That's an easy one. We just covered it today. I'm expecting everybody to get it correctly. One more students. We have 11 students playing today. Okay. Perfect. It's the margin. It's controlling the outside, not the border. The border, then the margin. Outside the element. The space that outside the element is the outermost, which is the margin. Eight, there are 2 CSS selectors in this code. What are they? So there's 2 selectors, the font weight and the font family, the color and the paragraph and the H1, the H1 and the bold. We're looking for the selectors. That's correct. It's the paragraph and the H1. Okay, Kona, you're in the first place. Good. The last question, how do you add a comments in CSS? Is it this format, this format, this format? You can't add comments in CSS. Of course, this is the correct format. This is for HTML. This can, I believe this can be used for C++, but not for CSS. Okay, let's see who's in the first place. Kona, congratulations. Bushra, Emmy, congratulations. Aitken, Mary, you're in the 1st and 5th place. Good job, guys. Okay, any questions for me before we wrap up today's class? Okay.
Actually, I have one. How are we gonna do the graduation project? We need to prepare for it, or we are gonna do it in the class together?
I'm gonna do it with you. So it's not a test for you. It's just to show you how you can, whatever we learned in this 3 days, put them together, because most of the codes that we did is more focused for a specific property, a specific tag, but now we want to put everything that we learned about in one project. So I'm going to walk you just to give you the idea how you can put everything together and to create a simple project.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No pressure on you, all the pressure on me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome. But again, to fully understand the project tomorrow, you need that you're clear on everything we covered in the 3 days. Like, you know, what is the margin is, what is the padding is, what is the box model. So when I use them tomorrow, you're familiar with them. And again, try to review whatever you learned in this 3 days. And if you have any question before the class, you're more than welcome to Slack me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay?
Thank you.
Welcome. Have a good night, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You too. Bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Kona, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are we gonna be able to have access to yesterday's lesson? Are you fixing the
video?
copyright issue? Yeah.
Yes, our support team, they are fixing the issue, and it should be out as soon as possible. They can.
Okay. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay.
You're welcome. No problem. And
actually, we have already uploaded it to our LMS system. If you go to visit our learning management system, you can watch the video from there. But for YouTube, it is still pending. We need to do some clarification for that part, as due to the break time musics, they block the video. And actually, you can watch the recording from the our learning management system. I will share the link with you. You can go and watch it.
Yeah, even I like it to watch most of the videos from the learning management system better than the YouTube and the ads and all that. You can always watch them from there.
Are we going to be able to use the LMS system after this course?
I'm not 100%. Barry, you have an answer for that?
Yes, you can continue use that part as well for HTML and CSS. Actually, we have more in the LMS, but it is open for the actual course.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Barry.
Okay.
And that's as well, Barry, for the GitHub link as well. They will still have access to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Okay, sorry we're a little bit late today, but we covered many stuff needed for tomorrow's project. Have a good night, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye. Oh, I need to get the link. Okay, send it.